Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo. We would like to take a moment to remind you to please turn off all cell phones and recording devices. If you have an opportunity, we'd appreciate if you could fill out one of our feedback surveys available from a volunteer upon your exit. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your experience at the Calgary Comic and Entertainment Expo.
Hey everyone, how's your Calgary Expo going? We got a real treat for you. First, let me introduce myself. I'm AJ Fry. I host a show called Inner Space weeknights at 6 on Space Channel. It's your, well, thank you. Some people who watch my show. Awesome. It's your go-to destination for all things genre. Let's bring out our guest. Hopefully you have some questions for him in the crowd. Well, I'll ask a few off the top because I am admittedly a big fan. Give it up for Paul Reiser, everyone. Have a seat.
I didn't know there would already be water. I brought water, just in case.
They're on top of things here at Calgary Expo. Great volunteers, by the way. Great job,
space.
volunteers.
Yes, thank you.
So...
Wow. Is there going to be a prison break? It's very bright here.
Yeah.
Nobody's going anywhere. All right.
I do a lot of these conventions, and I have yet to cross paths with you. You don't do so many of these conventions.
This is my first one.
What has your experience been like?
I said I'm not going to do it until these people are here. I want to work with them. It's been great. I just started a couple of hours ago. And, you know, it's actually nice because outside of a convention floor, if you see people walking around with these costumes, you'd be a little frightened. But here, you're happy to see them.
Exactly. Would you ever go in costume to one of these things?
I'm in costume right now. This is not how I dress.
Okay.
Yes. I wear a latex suit and just fangs at home, but this is my working costume.
We're all fans here. We're obviously fans of your work in various things. I kind of want to know what you are a fan of. Do you geek out over anything?
I don't. I was just telling some people backstage. They were talking about all these shows, and I'm a terrible TV person. There are so many shows that people watch that I don't even know of. Once in a while, I will lock into something, but there's never sci-fi. In fact, a friend of mine told me, a friend of mine I grew up with, who I hadn't seen in probably 30 years, but I just got together back east, and he reminded me that he took me to see Alien, the first one, and that he had to twist my arm. And I said, well, because I said, I don't really know about science fiction.
Right.
And he said, and then you end up being in space with Sigourney Weaver. So I was never really into science fiction. So the stuff that I do watch, you know, I watch House of Cards. I got hooked on, and Ray Donovan I got into, and Sopranos, and Game of Thrones. My wife and my kids watch, and I can't get in. I don't know. Too many costumes, too many something. I can't follow.
Well, what are your thoughts on the rise of fandom? Because now it used to be that geeks were, you know.
I know. Slowly you're taking over.
Yeah.
They're going to run the place soon. It's, you know, I have seen it in the last year or so. I've been out performing stand-up, which I hadn't done for years, for like 20 years. And excuse me. And invariably, somebody will come to the theater with stuff that I'm seeing out here, you know, posters of aliens. And so that was my first time of being aware that there is this, I won't say subculture, but it's pretty big, pretty prominent culture. People who, and they would have posters and still shots that I'd never seen and quoting lines that I didn't remember. And so I've been very impressed and made aware of the intensity and the breadth of this audience.
Well,
and now I'm getting to meet them personally.
No doubt people will be asking you about Burke and aliens. I, as someone who absolutely loved Mad About You, got to ask about it.
Wow. Okay. I will probably have better answers about Mad About You than Aliens, because Aliens was further back.
Well, what I loved about Mad About You is that so rarely on TV do we see couples that are genuinely in love and respectful of one another. So often it's situations of will they, won't they, or it's you know, people looking for love as the main characters, or it's a family where the dynamic is troubled and the kids are giving them problems, whatever. Yeah. But Mad About You was a show that was about a couple that are...
That's all it was. It's all, and that was by design and from the beginning. And we said, you know, they can have a fight, and they're not going to break up. We always wanted to do an episode or a series of episodes, which we did in the 4th season, where they get into marital problems, and because that's real, and every couple will go through some equivalent of that. But we said you can't do it in the first year because it's not true. You're not going to break up. You just got married, and to us and to me, there was always a wealth of places to go. That's why the song was called Final Frontier, because it was, even though, two people in a bed with this much space between them is a vast universe on the wrong night.
You just turned Mad About You into a sci-fi show.
Exactly, but it always was. Well, it's funny, because I got somewhere in the 3rd or 4th year of the show, I got a call, and they said, hey, they just played the Mad About You theme song on Mars. And I went, I don't even know what you're saying. What? Are there people on Mars? What are you talking about? And they go, no, there's a Sojourner, the thing, and it was their wake-up call. I go, why? Because what? Are there couples on Mars? And they said, no, idiot, because it's called the Final Frontier. I said, oh, okay, right, it's called Final Frontier. I'm very thick. You wrote it, I know, but I couldn't remember that.
Well, I did want to ask you about that as well, because you're a very multifaceted artist. You create music, you've written numerous books, you created the television series.
It's amazing.
Acting.
It's amazing, the list of things I've done.
Is there anything that you can't do that you would like to do artistically?
There's very little I can do, but I try to milk that as much as I can. Oh, I have a list of things I can't do. It's my goal ultimately was to be a forward on the Knicks, and that didn't work out. I've been kind of lucky. When stand-up was what I started and meant to do in the beginning, and I was really fortunate that it opened up, and I got really a lucky break in Diner, which was my first job, not even my first movie. It was the first anything, and it ended up being a huge. It wasn't a huge cross commercial hit, but it hit home for a lot of people, and it opened a lot of doors, and from that came television and so on. But I've been lucky in going back and forth and doing film and doing TV and now doing stand-up again, and the books were, sort of grew out of the show. So, I don't have a big list of things I'm itching to do. I got enough on the plate to keep me busy.
Well, before we open up questions from the floor, I got to ask, as someone who did actually go to school for comedy, Canada has a college.
Shaky University? What is it called?
Humber's comedy program. I did a 1-year course. Is there a key to comedy?
Did you finish? Because you seem funny.
I got my certificate.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is. Probably lost
I've been operating without one.
I don't know how you've been doing
it. Oh, boy, I'm going to get pulled over.
But there is that old saying, the key to comedy is pain plus time equals comedy. Is there a formula that you kind of go by?
What is that? Tell me again. I have not heard that.
You've not heard that?
I think you have to get the certificate before I tell you that little secret. I've been just winging it. I have no idea what comedy is.
First day in class, you walk in the chalkboard.
And what do they say?
Pain plus time equals comedy.
Maybe. Pain cannot get to comedy without time, but not all pain plus time equals comedy.
True enough.
It is your job to figure out which. That's why people go, too soon. Not enough time.
Yeah. All right, let's open it up to the floor. If you got a question for Paul Reiser, just throw your hand up right there in the blue shirt.
In Mad About You, there was always the joke about Murray the dog and going to catch the mouse. Who came up with that? Because it was always the recurring theme.
It's a little blurry. I'm going to say I did. I don't know. Maybe if you liked it. That was, I think, my friend Billy Grunfest and I think we came up with that joke. And because I had a dog who was constantly chasing invisible things. And one of my favorite moments on that, and it's sometimes, there's so many things when you put a show and you have to write it, and then when you're acting it, and all these components go into it. And there was, the joke was that Murray would always hit the wall off camera. And you never see it, because you're not going to get a dog to crash into a wall. And I remember we were just about done with the show, and I said, the sound effect is not right. It's missing the ka-chink. Because dogs have a little thing. So when I said, so we had to call, I said, before we lock, get the ka-chink in there. And then you sit and you go, it's not funny, turn it up. Now it's funny. And so if you listen on a good TV, you're going to hear this little ka-chink, which I will go, you're welcome.
Right there.
I know! I can't believe I don't work more often. Man walks into a talent agency, is this the Aristocrats? Is that where we're going? Wow. Wow, you all know that movie? Do you know what's so funny about that? The Aristocrats was a great joke, and it was the two fellows who did it. It was Penn Jillette and Paul Provenza, who was an old buddy of mine. We started at the same time. And they called me one time, and Paul said, we're going to do this movie about this joke. I said, well, that's a great idea. He said, can we, some night, can we come over to your house or come into your office and film you talk? I said, yeah, sure, whenever. About a year later, he said, well, so we're going to do that movie. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. What movie? I said, okay. So they came over, and I had no idea. We never thought it was going to be an actual movie, and certainly I had no sense that it was going to be a hit. I don't think they did either. They must have been very, surprised. But when it came out, it was about the same time that another movie that I did that I was really involved in, a thing called The Thing About My Folks, which was Peter Falk, that I wrote for Peter, and Peter and I started, and it was my labor of love. And I remember we had this big meeting with distributors, and I was just putting everything I had into this movie, and they go, now forget about this, we just saw your other one, the Dirty movie. I went, the Dirty movie? What? What are you... And I said, is there something from college when I was drunk? Is there something on YouTube? What happened? He goes, no, The Thing About the Joke. I went, that's a movie? I had no idea that it actually became a movie. And I was thrilled that they wanted to talk about that more than everything else that I was working on. But it was really funny. And I saw that, and they had a screening in a room about this size, a theater with all comedians. So it was like 250 comedians. And it was a really wonderful feeling of community, because everybody knew everybody in the movie and really enjoy. And comics really do enjoy hearing other comics. It's not usually competitive. Comics really love hearing other comics tell jokes, and that's a great study in that. To watch that movie and you hear so many people tell, it was like they said in the movie, it was like a jazz theme. And here's the joke, and we'll even tell you the punchline. It doesn't ruin it, because you'll get to watch, 30, 40 people tell the same joke. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. I can't do it here. There's children. I thought I would just tell you the story about it.
Do you have a favorite comedian that you appreciate their rendition of the joke?
I remember George Carlin killed me in that, and it was some of his it was just some of the little details of grotesque vomit and mucus, and I went, wow, that was specific. Because that's the gist of the joke. You know the joke. The joke, basically, if you haven't seen the movie, the joke, and I'm not going to tell it, but is that this act comes into a talent agent office, and he wants to sell and present. He goes, you should hire us because we have the greatest act. It's a family act, and he proceeds to describe the most vile, disgusting, sexual, wrong, morally offensive things. The punchline when it's all over, the guy says, wow, what do you call yourselves? He says, the Aristocrats. That's the joke. But within that joke, see, it's not funny. Wasn't enough time between the pain. But within that, you watch people wail on it, and George Carlin, I remember, really killed me.
Back to the crowd. Any more? Right there.
Then you're next. Okay, my two dads question. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, they were about the same time. I think Full House and My Two Dads were about the same time. Well, good for you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, that was, it was interesting, because that was a show, like, how old were you when that was on? In '87? I'm
33 now.
So you were, I can't do the math, you were 2. And that was a show, and when it was on, it was great. But the comment that I would get on the street was like, "Oh, my little daughter loves that show. Oh, my niece loves that show," which was nice. And when it was over, I thought, I want to do a show that people my age like. So when Mad, it was sort of helped me form. When Mad About You, when I had the opportunity to create a show, I said I want it to be that people couples my age go, ooh, that's just like us. And so to the degree that succeeded, I was pleased. And I'm glad you like my two dads. And your dad liked it, you see? Not just my niece, my dad. Yes, sir.
One of the challenges of a long-running show is how you close the show out ended, so it's satisfying for the audience. Can you talk about your thought process wrapping up Mad About You?
Yeah.
Did everyone hear the question?
The question was how did we decide to end Mad About You the way we did? Well, we knew we were going to. That was going to be our last year, so there was no surprises, and we wanted to land the plane gently. And one of the thoughts was we wanted to eliminate the possibility of a reunion show down the road. So we actually kind of all threw. All the writers and Helen and I, and we just all threw our thoughts into literally like a pot and a bulletin board with 1,000 ideas, and we just start weeding them out, and we ended up thinking it would be really nice to tell the story of not just the last episode, but of what happens in the subsequent years. So in fact, what we did was kind of jumping in time a little bit from what was current then, to 5 years in the future, 10 years in the future, then back to current. And so you got, in that 1 hour, you got to see where they would have gone. And in fact, through all the trials and tribulation, ended up on their feet, which we always thought that was something we wanted to deliver. Two things we wanted to deliver. One is that they're going to end up okay, and that they're all the work that this couple put into making their marriage work succeeded. But at the same time, it wasn't storybook perfect, that they're going to have, they even separated for a while. And we thought that was important, that we never wanted them to make it too easy. We spent a whole season, before we had the baby, we had a whole year of the trials and tribulations. They weren't succeeding, and that rippled out, and that was when the end of that season was when they each had flirtations with other people because they were both feeling inadequate. And we thought, yeah, we don't want to make it so easy because everybody out there is going, well, it ain't that easy in life. I mean, you don't always get pregnant when you want to. So we wanted to wrap up both things, give them the happy ending, but ground it in some reality. So and I was pleased. I thought it worked.
Do you think that if social media was what it is now, back when the show was on television, you would have done things differently or incorporated audience feedback at all? Or
no. You got too many people in the room anyway. No, I think it's other than some huge overwhelming thing of everybody says don't, whatever. No, I think it can become dangerous, and that's why I always think I really resist test marketing. I've written pilots and stuff over the last couple of years, and I cringe at the idea that they end up testing it. And I'm like, well, they don't just do it. Just put it out, and people will find it. And if it turns out nobody finds it, but you don't test it, because then people don't know what they want. Which is, nor do executives, nor do the audiences. A month before Seinfeld came on the air, nobody said, what we need is a show where 4 really narcissistic, goofy, you don't know. And the first couple of episodes weren't as great as they became. So it needs time, and you need, creative people to do what they do. And sure, along the way, we would get some input. The feedback then was letters, and you'd get, ooh, we really didn't like this. And so in a long-running series, you get to correct the wheel a little bit. Like, ooh, we're doing a little bit too much of him being that way, or she's too much that way. But I think there's a danger in too many people throwing their 2 cents in.
Right
Not
there
you,
on the floor.
others. Who? Hi. I don't. For Aliens, the casting experience. Yes, I remember very clearly, actually, the casting experience. I went in, and I had an audition with James Cameron, and they were. Wait a second, I'm trying to remember which was which. I remember there was a long time between the audition and getting it. Usually, you go in and you hear in a week or so. But because we were filming in the film was shot in England, they had to, for union purposes, exhaust all their possibilities. They needed to show the British unions, we've looked at every possible actor in the UK, and there's just nobody as talented as this guy. It's not possible. So there was a long delay. But I remember going to the meet. my wife had just moved out. We weren't married yet, and she had just moved out, and we were moving into an apartment when I got a call. You got an audition for James Cameron. It's like, this is the first audition. And all my clothes were in boxes on a truck. So literally I was going, pull out that box. That one has pants. That one has shoes. I was like, I was on a truck getting dressed with Teamsters yelling at me. I go, no, yeah, just put the end table down and get my shoes. And somehow got dressed, went down, and I remember the meeting, and so it was probably 3 months, which is a long time, and I had kind of put it out of my head. And I was shooting something else, and I remember my agent came down to the set and said, "Why are you going to England?" I said, "Why is that?" Remember Alien? Yes. So it was very cool. It was very cool, and we had it was shot the studio Pinewood Studios, which is out in a town called Slough, which is just the perfect name for it, Slough, and they put us up in the Howard Johnson's or the equivalent in Slough, and it was just brutal. And everybody would say, our expression was, in Slough, no one can hear you scream. And so after about a week, we all said, you know what, we'll move to London, which was 40 minutes. We said, we'll just drive more in the morning. But yeah, I was very thrilled. And I think his thinking at the time was, Jim Cameron's thinking was to get somebody, to whatever extent I was known, and I wasn't particularly known, but if anything, it was known as a comic. So like, well, they won't suspect right away that this guy's going to be evil. But I don't think it worked, because like the minute I was on screen, people go, "That's a bad guy. That's bad. Something's wrong with him being in this movie. That's wrong."
We know James Cameron as being kind of a hard-working guy, very, very dedicated. Maybe doesn't have such a great sense of humor on set, or seems very focused. Were you busting his chops at all, or were you kind of?
No, he's enormously focused. I mean, that's why he's kind of a genius, and he was very clear. It was one of those things, my background coming out of stand-up, where you do everything yourself. You write it yourself, you perform it yourself, and it's singular. This was such a huge group effort. It came out of his vision, but it was, for me, it was such a joy to say, well, to realize, you read the script, you go, well, this is going to be huge, this is fantastic. And my part is this little piece of it. All I have to do is don't screw that part up. You go and do that part really well. Forget about everything else. Just do that, and it will fit into this little cog. Will fit into this big wheel. And so he was terrifically focused, and you felt very confident in knowing that this guy knew what he was doing. I mean, we had seen Terminator, and it's like, all right, this guy's brilliant. But years later, what was that? So that was 85. Somewhere around 94, 95, Jim Cameron actually did a cameo on Mad About You, and the joke was, and he came down, I couldn't believe it. I remember he was filming outside, we had this fake New York street outside our LA studio, and he was testing cameras that he was developing. That's his genius too. He doesn't just come up with a movie, he goes, we need a camera, it doesn't exist, I'll invent it. I'm like, okay, you do that. And he was playing with this new crazy camera that he was going to use in Titanic. And I said, would you do a cameo? And he did a cameo, and he said, privately, he said, listen, I have to think any actor who worked for me, I must have been brutal, so I owe you a favor. So if I can ever do you a favor. And the joke was, in Mad About You, I played a documentary filmmaker, and I was not getting any good work. My character was not getting any good jobs. And finally, I got a job. It wasn't about Titanic. So, right, it must have been years later. It must have been after Titanic was made. It wasn't even, I wasn't directing the making of Titanic, which was a documentary. I was doing a documentary about that documentary. It was called The Making of the Making of. That's how low on the show business ladder this movie was. And so basically the joke was it was outtakes that the making of wouldn't even use. They were so boring. So I said to James Cameron, here, you just sit in a chair like this and just pretend this is like the bad footage. Just sit still, pick your nose, whatever. And he couldn't not do, he felt to do so, he had to do something. I said, no, the joke is, it's really boring. That's the joke, that I was getting really, and he had difficulty being that boring. But he was a very good sport about it.
Go back to the floor, right there, the Flash.
Nickname? The Flash? You're the Flash? Oh, I see. Oh, the Flash. I thought he had a Flash guy. Yeah, all right.
Casting against type, and obviously your Aliens character is much darker than a lot of your other work. Do you find that more challenging? Do you feel like get enthusiastic about
Yeah, it was very, well, it was thrilling because I knew, I had never been in a movie like that, and I didn't think I would be the natural call to be in a movie like that. But so it was very cool, and I didn't really approach it as the bad guy. And to this day, people go, "Oh, you were such a bastard." I go, "Well, just misunderstood." It depends how you look at it. I was working for the company, doing my job. But like I said before, I knew that the movie was going to be great, and I just had to not stop it every time I was on camera. People go, "Well, that's bad." But it was also, for me as a comic, you're talking the whole time, and there were a lot of scenes in that movie. In fact, the first couple of weeks of shooting, I was in scenes that I had no lines, and it was very eye-opening for me. It's like, well, what do you do if you have nothing to say? You're not being funny. Forget that. If you don't even have anything to say, how do you act? How do you be in a scene? What is your character doing? And sometimes it's nothing. It's like Jim Cameron, just be boring and still. But it was very challenging, and it was a great experience. So, and over the years, here we are. It's 30 years later, and to see that movie means so much, has meant so much to so many people. It's kind of mind blowing.
Got a
I hope I
question
answered your question.
right there.
And then we'll do that nice lady. Hi. He's standing up. Notice this man's standing up, not like you people. Mostly everybody else with the lazy questions, but this man's...
In my opinion, your best performance was in Bye Bye Love.
Okay, thank you.
Very emotionally moving movie. What was it like working with Rob Reiner and that large ensemble cast?
The movie Bye Bye Love, it was three guys, Randy Quaid and Matthew Modine and me, played three divorced guys. It was a really fun... And Rob didn't direct. No, Rob didn't direct it. Rob Reiner was in it. Yeah, it was directed by a guy, Sam Weissman. And it was a movie about divorce. And that's another movie that people, usually people who've gone through divorces and custody pulls, have responded to really powerfully, because it was basically the message of that movie was, this is really hard, and just keep throwing love at the kid. You're not going to go wrong if you keep throwing love at the kid. So. The feedback on that movie was always very nice, and it was great fun. It was a really good script, and it was great people, and I got to kiss Amy Brenneman. That was pleasant. Yeah, and who was that? Oh, and Janine Garofalo was in there. She was wasn't that Janine? Yeah, she was really funny. Who ended up playing our grown-up daughter in the finale of Mad About You. Our grown-up, the premise, right? It's all coming back to me now. See, it's all coming back. Yes, the premise of the finale was that our grown-up daughter in the future is doing a documentary about her parents, a film about her parents, and our daughter, little baby, grew up to be Janine Garofalo, who was killer in it. She was really great in that. Means nothing. Okay.
Was someone that you had
Yes,
pointed out?
ma'am. Somebody, they moved. They went away. There, yes.
There.
I didn't look up high enough.
I was just wondering, when you were filming Aliens, if there was anybody in particular that you really enjoyed working with, or if there was any funny stories.
Did everyone hear the question?
Yeah, I enjoyed working with everybody. It was an interesting thing. Billy Paxton and I became good friends there, and it was an interesting dynamic, though, because all the guys, there was Sigourney, and then there was all the guys who were military, and they had like 2 or 3 weeks of preparation, boot camp, where they were learning how to use all the ammunition and stuff, and they were bonding. And then there was me with my little pencil, and and they got all these guns and flamethrowers, and I had a pencil. And so so it was very appropriate. I felt kind of out of it. And I thought, well, maybe Brooke would feel like I want to be like those guys, and I can't. So I'll have to really make my mark some other way by being an asshole. So, but and I remember the only prop I had. They had all this stuff, and there was like every kid's dream. You want to be in a movie where they're saddling up, and here's your gun, and here's your rope, all that stuff. And I remember the only thing I had was like a little date book, a Rolodex, not a Rolodex, what do you call it? Filofax. That word doesn't even exist. It did then. Filofax.
A
Wow.
day planner?
A day planner. And I remember I said, well, that's a choice I made. I'm going to carry that. It'll look, oddly stupid for a reason, though. But that he's going to space and he's just taking notes. And the day before we shot one particular scene, which was the first scene I showed up in, and Jim Cameron pulled me aside. He said, think really carefully if you want to take this book, because now you're going to hold it for 2 months. I said, I think you take it. I think you would. All right. You know, worst comes to worst, he lost it in the bathroom. He dropped it.
Up there, red sleeves.
Hi.
Paul, big fan of your work, big fan of your stand-up.
Thank you.
I really want to ask about Helen Hunt, but I'm going to go somewhere else. Was a complete stand-up guy like yourself when you were young working with Eddie Murphy?
Eddie Murphy. Well, I actually, we did. Yeah, I had one scene in Beverly Hills Cop, and I already had known Eddie from the comedy clubs, and I was in New York City, and he was out on the island, so that's sort of like was like another market, but it was 20, 30 minutes away, but it was another world, and all for months we kept hearing there's this really funny kid. He's 16, but he's apparently the funniest guy in the world, Eddie Murphy, and then he would come into the club and just go, wow. This guy, and he was 16, 17, as funny as he is today. He was just that cocky and confident and funny. So it was, as opposed to being intimidated, when I got to do the scene, we was like, oh, now we're getting to play. And he wasn't quite as big. That movie launched him to another level. So I got to do, play with him, and then it obviously did well, so they did the second one. And I remember they said, you're going to drive a Ferrari. And I went, I hate to tell you, I don't drive a stick. And I go, all right, we're going to give you a lesson. So I spent a couple of days driving. I went, yeah, I still don't drive a stick. And they go, well, we're just going to make that part of the joke, that your character can't drive for shit. So there you go. Because I'm incapable of learning.
Right there.
I really enjoyed Diner.
Thank you.
But I have forgotten everything about it except your character, your role.
That's my intention. Make them forget the others.
How did you get that from?
This is my lesson, my little anecdote for anybody who thinks there's a plan, or that you can even have a plan. That was my first job and got me everything that ever came afterwards, and it was entirely an accident. Diner. They were coming. Barry Levinson, the writer-director, came to New York, and they were looking for a couple of parts. I think maybe just one or two they hadn't cast, and he had in his mind there was going to be one extra. There were 5 main guys, and then one sixth guy who would be sort of a funny guy would round out the group, and so they went to the comedy clubs, which is what casting agents, directors often do. And they didn't see me, but they saw some other people. They saw a friend of mine, and they said to him, come down tomorrow to this address and bring a picture. Just so happened, I called that guy that day. I said, listen, I got to go buy socks. We have nothing to do. We're comedians. We're 22. I got to go buy socks. He said, I said, want to take a walk? He said, I got to drop off a picture at a casting at an office. I went, all right, well, we'll go with you, and then we'll go buy socks. And I was waiting for my friend sitting in a chair, and the casting director said, where's your picture? I said, no, I'm not here. I'm just waiting for my friend. We're going to buy socks. And she said, do you have a picture? I said, you know what? I'm not even up for this. This is my friend's thing. I'm just not. She said, come back tomorrow with a picture. I said, all right. And came back the next day, and 2 days later, I found out I got the part. So here's what I can teach you. Go for socks often. But you never know. That was literally serendipity that I walked in on that day, and she was on the ball. She saw something in me that she thought the director would like, and then it turned out right. So,
Are you still friends?
yeah, we're still friends. We're still friends, yes.
Is he still a comedian?
No. He owns a sock store, and it's called Footsies or Us, the biggest store in New York now. But he actually did well, because for a long time, other actors were paying him to go buy socks with them. He said, it worked for Reiser, let's try it. $20 a shot.
There was someone right there.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to know what you're doing right now, what projects. I noticed yesterday that David Steinberg tweeted a
David tweeted a picture because we went out for dinner. Dinner with David Steinberg, who he said, mention my name in Calgary, because he said he's huge. It's like Trudeau and then him. That's how big. He might be lying. I know. I'm in the middle of shooting a show. There's a new show on FX called Married, which will come out in July, and it's an ensemble cast, and I'm in like 5 episodes, and they called and they said, we had a great script. It's a new show called Married. I said, I think I did that show already. Didn't I do 7 years of that? Different Married. And I did, huh? Yes, yes, they are. And I have 2 movies that'll come out in the spring. Where you going? I get funnier. This is not a funny question. Don't chew my head off. Jesus Christ. She asked it. Talk to her. Wow. What touchy. Wow. I never liked them. I'll be honest with you. I never liked them. Now we can talk freely. And 2 movies. There are 2 movies that are going to come out in the fall. One is called Life After Beth, which is a rom-com zombie-dram, a romantic comedy zombie drama.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like saying rom-com zombie-dram. With Dane DeHaan and Aubrey Plaza, who's really, and it's a great, really funny and sweet. It's really nice, and John C. Reilly. And then there's a really cool movie coming out in, I guess, October or something called Whiplash, which is not funny at all, but it's a really cool, it's really a two-hander. Both those movies, I play the dad of the young, good-looking guy. Get the young, good-looking guy, and then I play his old dad. Yes, sir. No, just scratching a chin. Okay, and it was a man. Sorry. Anybody at all?
Right there.
Well, look how festive. Look how eager. And then up there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, no matter what you, the layout of the apartment.
Big.
Why was the bathroom on the other side of the bedroom? Is there any reason?
Why was the bathroom on the other side of the bedroom? Where would you have liked it to be? In the hall? No, I think because in TV land you got to spread it out so you can shoot things. People from New York would call very angry and go, "You don't have an apartment that big. Nobody has an apartment that big." I said, "It's big, but it's also there's only 3 walls, so you get what you pay for." Yeah. So somebody up there had a question. Yes, sir.
Just curious, sir, are you the type of guy like when you're between projects, like you finish one project like Grandpa Jim, do you sleep in your pajamas for a couple of months or play into something?
I live in a cave. Between projects, I go back to a cave and they put a little ball on the floor and I eat, and then they tell me if there's a new project, I get dressed and shave. Otherwise, I'm not knocking myself out. No, I have never considered myself between projects because I started as a stand-up, so like that was always the ground level. And as I said, it's funny, I hadn't done it for 20 years, but now in the last year or two, been out touring again, it's starting to feel like that again. Like that's what I do. I go out and I do stand-up, and anything else that comes up is great, sort of gravy. But I never felt like I'm between projects. I never felt comedians sort of never feel out of work, which is a nice sort of safety valve. But now it's nice that I'm not. I'm getting to pick and choose, and something fun comes up, and I get to do it, and I go out of the house. I am. I'm going to be here. Slappy, when am I coming to Calgary? June. I think in June or July. There's a. Is it Yuck Yucks? Is it a comic called Yuck Yucks?
Yep.
Yeah. I was there. Were you there? I came to Edmonton. You didn't show up. I'm not going back. You can go with those people. All right, we'll get back to Edmonton, but I will be actually here in June or July. You can go to my website. I love saying that, paulreiser.com. I was here, actually, I performed here a year ago, and they gave me the key to the city. So I can, even if it's closed, I can come anytime.
Nice. There were a whole
Yes, ma'am.
bunch over here.
All right.
Front row and then back there.
Okay,
and then-
yes. Yes. Yeah.
I was just wondering, after seeing the warm reception that you have here at this expo, are you excited to continue going to expos, even if it's not as an alien cast member?
Well, let's see how the day goes. The day is young. So far, it's been fun. I never thought about it. I'd never really one way or the other. But then this suddenly a chance to see everybody and all the actors. Yeah, it's fun. Listen, there's no downside to meeting a whole bunch of nice people who are happy to see you. So, nothing bad about that. Thank you.
We got time for a few more. We got the
few
5
more.
minutes. There's one right there.
All right, so this family goes into a talent agency. And he takes a vacuous dump on the floor. No, you know what? This is I don't have jokes. I kind of talk like me, and when you go home, it's not until you're in the car, the audience is leaving the show to go, he didn't have any jokes at all. But you don't notice it because you're having such a good time. But it's about a day or two later, you go, hey, what the hell was that? That was a hollow experience. And I'm in the next town. Ha, ha, ha. Yes, sir. You know, not really. Not really. My audience, the question was, has the comedy audience changed? I think that at this point, people coming out to see me know me, and they've grown with me, so they used to be younger too, you know? So when I'm talking about, it used to be I was talking about being newlywed, and now I'm talking about being married 25 years and having kids, and the audience is going, yeah, we're right with you, brother. We know, you know. So we're going through the same thing. And it's funny, the world has changed since I was out doing stand-up, but comedy has not, in that it's a low-tech, it is the most low-tech art form there is. There is no way to do it other than human being talk, other humans hear it and laugh. So you can't speed it up, you can't digitize it, you can't, you know, you can, there are other things, but in terms of stand-up, it's as old school as you can get, and it kind of, I find it kind of refreshing that I found that there is no shortcut. You write your jokes, you go up on stage in a little club on a Tuesday, you find out what works, what doesn't. Wednesday, you make it a little better, and it's just time and comedy. No pain. Say again? Yeah, John Panette, great comic who just passed away about a month ago. I had only gotten to know him in this past year. Awfully funny guy. Yeah, sweet man. Big loss.
Someone right there has had their hand up for a long time.
Yes, I've always wanted to see Bill Paxton. My dream was to see Kate Hepburn, the Barrymores, and Bill Paxton on stage. If I could, those three. Did they kiss in the movie? Oh, you know what? I'm sure she's up nights thinking about that. I haven't been in our house for a while, but I know she had a big bulletin board, picture of Bill, picture of me, and then she would rate the kisses, and because she has a lot of time on her hands for that kind of silliness. Well, maybe Bill and I will kiss, and we'll call Helen and go, you know what? We don't even need you. Cut out the middleman, I say.
Got time for a couple more questions, so if you got them, throw your hands up in the air. Right there.
I was going to say, on that one, was a lot of it scripted, or was it a lot of it improvised? Because I know when you watch a couple of the episodes with Mel Brooks.
Well, that's a game changer. With Mel Brooks, yeah. It was very scripted, and we would sometimes throw in a little bit of line, but no, it was scripted. Mel, even his was scripted, but then you get on the day, he would do whatever he wants. And if you ever watch the first episode with Mel, he was my hero. He is my comedy hero, and I just couldn't believe that I was getting to work with him. And if you notice, there were very few close-ups of me because I was on the floor, or I literally couldn't keep it together. And there were shots of me. This is how stupid I am. I was like in a bad high school play where you think if you turn around, the audience won't know that you're laughing. I'm like, I go, idiot, you're on camera. I was useless.
Well, we are getting the wrap.
All right.
Do you want to wrap it up with any words to the fans who
No,
came
it's
out?
so nice, and I thank you for not making them all aliens questions, because I didn't know if I had any secrets about aliens to give you. But thank you so much, and I'm sure we'll see you out on the floor there somewhere. Thank you.
Paul
folks.
Reiser, everyone. Enjoy the rest of Calgary
Thank you.
Expo.
Nice to see you.
keeps. Come on. 'Cause I might not make it back. Been everywhere. Oh, yeah. I'm standing tall. I've seen a million faces, and I rock them all. 'Cause I'm a cowboy.